People.ai, Natalie Wolf.
Wow, those lights are bright. Holy moly. Am I the only thing standing between you guys and lunch and gals? Yeah, how are we doing? Good? Can we give some snaps and some claps for all the amazing speakers? It's so fabulous. Yes, and I'm a snacker, right? That's probably my sorority days. A little bit about me, Natalie Wolf, lead all things post-sales at People.ai. I also run RevOps, if you want to know more about that. We can talk later, but run all those things. I like pain and punishment, so I was a consultant for 10 years in finance transformation. I love punishment even more, so I decided customer success would be the next jump. Ran annual plan at scale, like really early on, then moved over to Slonis, and now I'm here at People.ai. So today is an exciting topic. I hope that the things that you get today are really practical tips for AI and how you can think about maturity, how you can think about growing into AI. So we'll talk a little bit about that and then hopefully leave you with some actions. Does that sound good? Yeah. Cool. I feel like you guys need like a oxygen boost. You guys want to just hold your hands up really quick? Get some oxygen. Cool. I'm also an aerobics instructor, so you guys think I'm joking. I'm not. I actually teach fitness classes on the side. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what we're gonna do today. Identify your maturity level, so that's gonna be fun. Then how are we going to take AI signals and make them real? What are some practical tips? How do you personalize AI for your teams? How do you make that real for them? And then getting people through the change curve. That's real, especially for your support teams, for your service teams that are a little laggard in AI. So how do we really get them to get ready? Let's talk first about our reality and why AI readiness really matters. A lot of us are just faced with CS being, I think go-to-market teams in general are laggards in innovation and tech. And also what I've observed, because given what we do at People.ai, I talk to CCOs and CROs all day. And really, it's just oversaturated with tools. So I'm not gonna talk about People.ai too much today, but I'm gonna talk about some things for you to think of, because I really want us to carry forward the mission of bringing AI to our revenue teams. And really being AI ready isn't about tools, right? It's about culture, it's about data, and it's about workflows, or what I would call rituals that matter. Those are the three things you should be obsessing on. And then once you have that right, it's like, well, what are the tools based on the jobs to be done? So we're gonna talk about that. First, the AI maturity model. I've been kind of brainstorming this as I've talked with the top of our most innovative customers. These are the stages in which I see our customers go through AI maturity. So the obvious is not started, so I'm not gonna go through that, but experimentation, you're probably trying out AI in pockets. There's specific teams that are trying to understand value. Maybe there's a small pilot at this stage. Now if you're moving into scaling, it's really in a core go-to-market process, right? It's driving a little bit more depth into everything you're doing, trying to roll it out more meaningfully, and it's seeing impact across teams. Then lastly, transformation. This is where you're really an AI-first organization, and I wanna be really specific here. Your AI capabilities are creating a competitive advantage. And I'll say that again. If you're in transformation, you now have a competitive advantage as a result of the experimentation you did and the move forward you did. And that is driving autonomous business decisions in every part of your organization. Most organizations are fairly in the middle. And that's okay, it's a journey, right? We're not here to say, oh, you need to be at transformation, but the key is to know where you are and where you'd like to be and how you'd wanna move forward. I'll just take a poll. How many of you feel like you're in awareness right now? Yeah, awareness? Cool, good to know. What about experimentation? You're starting to test, okay, love that. And then scaling. Take a look in the room. These are some folks you might want to talk to. And then lastly, transformation. You're using this autonomously. Cool, very good to know. So let's break down what each stage really looks like in practice and what are the signs that you're ready to move to the next stage. And so I'm gonna give you real examples of this, teaser, but here are some ways you know what the exit criteria is moving out. So awareness, my really important thing here is a lot of people are moving to experimentation without doing this. You need to make sure you have a good understanding of your data, right? Maybe you're fixing your CRM inconsistencies, or you're preparing for future AI initiatives. Data is a moat, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit, but it's more than just drafting summaries, recapping meetings, right? I want you to be thinking about your data, and if you've gotten that basic understanding of where your data exists and what processes that need to get refined, that's a great step that you're ready to move on to experimentation. Experimentation, you know you're ready to move out of that when you're really doing experimentation, AI-based forecasting, for example. Maybe you have an AI-led health score, which includes adoption and other churn factors. It's more, you're getting to be more predictive on future AI initiatives. And then experimentation is really official pilot programs. You have really deep pilots that are controlled, that are generating value. And then moving to scaling, some of the things you see here is your company culture is ingrained with all of the ways of working in AI. So those are really good examples of, hey, now we're having some interest in some autonomous activities we want to do next. So what does that look like? And also really important at this stage is that you really understand the AI mindset as the organization. Do you have a manifesto around it? Do you have dedicated tools? How is the organization talking about AI in an initiative? That's how you know you're ready to move to transformation, which is the last really interesting step is you have multi-agent networks. You have agents doing certain activities with humans in the loop. That's how you know that you're really taking that unstructured data and making it accessible via Gen AI. Does that make sense? So those are some good things you should be looking for to know you're ready to move on to the next step. Are we ready for some examples? Yeah, you want some examples? Okay, quiet crowd. So by the way, everything I show you is gonna be based on People.ai. I'm not here to talk to you about People.ai, but it's just the examples that I have. And so feel free to think about that with your tools, your lens. Remember, just so if you don't know, People.ai has all activity capture. It captures transcripts, ingestion of emails, every single activity an AE, a CSM, an SC is doing on an account. We grab it, capture it, filter it, and match it to an account and opportunity. So that's how I'm able to do these things. So an example of this is if you're in awareness, you really need to leverage your foundational data. So things that I'm doing right now, I do not do any time studies of CS anymore. Coverage, segmentation, understanding capacity. I know where every one of my CSMs are spending time. Their names are grayed out, but these are the hours they're actually spending on accounts every day. I can drill in, understand what are they spending their time doing, how many emails, how many VPs are they talking to. I can understand all of those activities, so I have foundational data. That's your awareness, and if you don't have that first, this is where you need to start. You need to be getting out of the loop of doing all those activities manually and doing that in a workflow that really matters to you. The examples here are coverage and segmentation, but there are many others. Now, other things you should be thinking about doing. Taking workflows that are really time intensive. How many of you had to do for an executive team, board team, a churn win-loss analysis of all the reasons a customer churned? Okay, I have to do that every quarter. It's really fun. But really, it's manual nature, and start to look at these things. Churn win-loss analysis is a great example of understanding how to really take the data and do analysis with it without a human. Another example of this would be, support case management triage, right? Another is services onboarding. Those are super manual in nature, and they're cross-functional, which is really important. We'll talk about that in a second, but doing these types of analysis. Then the next is now you're ready to advance really important workflows that are critical to the business. And so surfacing signals in the forecast. This would be an example of taking a signal in a workflow that really matters. So in this particular example, what we do is we automate signals that look at risk. For example, if the deal is not going through procurement, it's going to surface that. If they've had a product issue or a limitation, it's going to service that. I don't want to go through every opportunity in the forecast to find out a risk. How many of you had to go through your CRM and go account by account trying to figure out why is this customer at risk? No longer do you have to do that. Put the signal in the forecast. So that's an example. Another example of this would be everyone should be doing success plans, right? Well, how do you automate some of that? How do you bring in 10Ks and other global customer information and bring that in autonomously to make your success plans better and help coach CSMs in the moment? So those are another examples of scaling activities. Another thing that we do is we send automated Slack alerts when a customer has a high impact issue, when there is a health score change, or other users were added to the platform. These are moments that matter. And so we create signals that help designate what should a support person do as a next step? What should a CSM do as a next step? Other examples. Then I want to give you some other things to think about is orchestration. How do we orchestrate AI to work for all of go-to-market? I gave a very basic example, but we take our customer updates, our health updates, and we push them into Slack, and the CSMs have the ability to be the human in the loop. They can adjust the health score or the health risk as they see fit, but no longer are CSMs doing an update on what the key developments are for the account, what are the risks and opportunities, and this week's actions. AI is doing that for us. So that's a little bit more transformative because it's doing an activity for a CSM. Another example of this, which is newer for us, and we're experimenting a lot with the integration of a Claude and what we have as Sales AI, but think about ingesting all of your data sources and then taking activities and orchestrating it for your CSMs, for your support people, for your implementation resources in what I call, I don't know if this is branded yet, but task farming. Task farming is the idea that you take a playbook of the things you really want a CSM to do based on all the predictive behaviors of a good CSM, good steps to renew, things you see that are leading indicators of success. Maybe that's around adoption. Maybe that's the right executive sponsors you want. And you start to build an agent that helps tell a CSM every day what are the things they should go do. What are the top 3 things if they did nothing else that they need to do right now? And I don't have examples for you because I can't share customers. But you could see this is the prompt you might start with to start thinking about task farming. And so taking some certain activities that are really important to CSMs every day. How many of you feel like the CSMs don't really know when they wake up what they should be doing? Or it's just too much? And so these are the ways you can tell them and help them be prescriptive on, hey, based on all the activity I've seen on this account, all the risks I've seen on this account. Here is the playbook and the enablement for the best practices. Now go tell the CSM what to do. And that will help them in the middle of their triage or support or their day-to-day to coach them. And I think that's really important because as we talked about, or some of the presentations earlier, is you're going to start also managing your agents. And your agents are supporting the work a services this person is doing to onboard a customer, the work a CSM is doing to get a customer to adopt. So those are some ideas of things you should be thinking about, real examples that might inspire you. But we really need to meet our CS teams where they are, and we need to ingrain that in our priorities. So one of the really important things is building AI into your focus. So every single quarter, I'm telling my team that our priorities have not changed. We're improving customer health, we're building a CSG organization with operational excellence, and we're building a value delivery system that scales. Those things won't change. And this is real. This is like my priorities for last quarter. And so every time I go to the board, I'm talking about our initiatives and these categories. But what's really important is embedding AI in those initiatives. So for example, you might get to a new organization. You heard about the first 90 days, first 120 days. Of course you want CSMs to do a success plan, but how might you use AI to automate them? Every activity you are doing in your initiatives should have a layer of AI underneath it, right? If you're going to be rebuilding customer onboarding journey, how might you supplement AI in that? And so really getting your organization to be thinking about we're not just talking about AI, we're embedding it in the initiatives that really matter for the organization. And every week, every month, every quarter, you're gonna see this slide and you know for sure that this is what's important. And so capturing the right signals are really important, and focusing on the initiatives that matter to you. So another point I would make is, not all data is equal. Pick the signals that matter to you. I heard a lot from all of you and the speakers today. Product adoption really matters. Executive engagement really matters. The value milestones that really matter. Work on those signals. I think a lot of time, the CS group in general, we have so much data. We probably have more data than the rest of our revenue counterparts, and we get a little overwhelmed by it. I'd say make it easier. Make it smaller. Take a few signals that really matter to you and build next steps out of those signals. So for example, for me, I care about our account health, and I've made that predictive, and it's very clearly articulating to my team the next steps I need to take. It's coaching them in the moment if the health score is red, if it's yellow. And by the way, we've made the prompt and we've kind of tested and experimented out what makes a really good health score, and AI is helping assist us in the loop with that. So capturing those right signals and doing only a few of those, and then putting that into the strategy of how do I orchestrate next steps. So really important that you do that. But how do you personalize AI? How do you ingrain this in your team's ways of working? A couple things. We talked about auditing your signals. So ask what data you have and what 3 signals will truly predict outcomes. That's step 1. The second, I think, is kind of left behind, and we don't do this work enough, creating an AI manifesto. How many of you at your organization or in your group have an AI manifesto? Tools to use, when to use it, what are good examples of good looks like? We need to create this vision for AI for our CSG teams and our organization. And I'd love to see more of us, our customer success leaders, be the ones who lead the charge with our AI manifesto. Because we are, as I heard earlier, Dan was talking about this, we are the orchestrators of telling everyone what's going on with our customer base. So why don't we experiment and create the manifesto we want to see about how we should use AI, what really matters, what tools we should use, and what are good examples. And then a next little tip is an AI hackathon. A lot of times hackathons are primarily done by engineering and products, but CS teams, AEs, SCs, we need to be doing that work with them. And so what I did was build out an AI hackathon with our go-to-market team. Very interesting, by the way, seeing an AE work on some project on customer onboarding with an SC and a CSM. But what it created was a lot of cross-functional collaboration. There was obviously prizes, and we created a whole collaboration around really future initiatives we wanted to see. But really important to start getting people to experiment and giving them a safe space for them to feel like this is benefiting my job's to be done, this isn't a workflow that matters, and the rest of the organization cares about solving these challenges. And that leads me to the next point. Cross-functional wins change everything. If you're going to pick an AI initiative that impacts CS, why don't you get the AEs involved? Why don't you get your go-to-market revenue leaders involved? Why don't you get your SCs or BDRs involved? The experimentation and the innovation that might happen will be amazing. Once we did the hackathon, the team came up with an incredible new way of onboarding customers, so much so that one of our customers said, I need to know what you guys were doing because you were prepped, you knew exactly what needed to be done, and you were there in the moment, and that was because of all the great automation we built into the onboarding process. So really encourage you all to take your first AI win and make it cross-functional. Something we have to deal with is the change curve. And how do we get our teams ready to use AI and move through the curve? Everyone has probably seen the change curve. I think we all know what that means. But what I'm noticing and observing, at least in my team, is that people in support, for example, very hesitant to change, did not understand why they need to change, and probably were very angry and a little frustrated. So what I did was actually bring in great support practitioners who were already innovating, who could show them the way. They need to see that their jobs will be better, and they need to hear it from other support professionals. So focusing on the why this matters to them, how this can make their job better, and enlisting these partnerships of great practitioners in the space to make them feel like they're part of this problem to solve, and that other people are already doing it. Do you want to come with us and work with the willing? And then the next is, we talked about experimentation. AI Hackathon is one way you can do that. Another way is every week we have quiet hours for 2 hours a week. And usually we would be spending that time to make sure CSMs don't get interrupted, services people don't get interrupted. I like to give people quiet time, especially in a remote environment. But we also now use that for 2 hours of innovation time. We have an open office hours. People who are experimenting come to the office hours. They get help, ask questions. It gives some psychological safety to the innovation they're working on, and also gives us space, because every day we know our CSMs, our pre-sales people, our services people are inundated with so much. So how do we give them some capacity and some time and space to innovate? And then lastly, you're going to have a few people who are so far on the right side. Some of you have some people you can think of that are big innovators in your teams? I want you to really engage those early adopters and give them some ammo. Give them some space. It's going to create a little bit more friction and a little bit more capacity constraints on other people, but it's worth it in the end, because these are the people who are going to come up with the activities and other innovative solutions for your team that you have not thought of. When we started to do task farming at the organization, I didn't come up with that. One of our best CS leaders did. And so now, not only is their time 20% spent on new AI initiatives, I'm moving them into a full-time AI solutions role. And I really encourage everyone to start thinking about that one person who is in acceptance right now. How might you move them into a different role to make them wake up every day and all they care about and all they think about is innovation for the future? That will give you a huge leverage and more efficiency for the rest of the group, way farther than bringing everyone else along, because people are going to be behind them. So how do you give them the space to do that and shape their careers, how they might get some quick wins? But our job as leaders is to get your team through the change curve as fast as possible. You need them to be in experimentation now. And so these are a couple ways you can do that. Well, how else might I accelerate the experimentation change curve? We talked about micro experiments, right? Not big bangs. Giving people some freedom to build some interesting things like onboarding, those signals I was talking about. Do that first, and then create fast feedback loops. There's some innovation that's happening that I'm like, that's not gonna work. However, let's create space for them to get fast feedback loops, make it better, faster, stronger. And then show those visible wins early. I think CS organizations in general are so used to just getting stuff done that we don't raise our head up, we don't look cross-functionally and want to show the impact and show the value of some of the operational stuff we're doing that's fabulous. So show those visible wins early to your executive team, and you will see so much more partnership from the rest of your executives. I know I was the one in our executive team that came up with the AI hackathon, and having our CEOs sit side by side watching the experiments that our CSMs and our AEs and SAs were doing just created more momentum for the initiative. And then we talked about psychological safety and values. Align that to the things that really matter for your group and the why, and you'll see people move through the curve faster. And then lastly, co-create plays. Don't dictate what they should be doing. Like I said, there's going to be people out there way smarter that have really great innovation. We need to give them space to play. We need to give them space to innovate. So create freedom of doing these micro experiments, doing them cross-functionally, getting feedback fast, and creating some of that space that experimentation could happen, and we celebrate those wins. So those are some things you can do to accelerate the experimentation change curve. Couldn't be more simple, right? We can just all go home and now do that, right? Yeah, it's just easy. I'm a huge Schitt's Creek fan, so have to put that in there. But I think that where we are all at today is we're surrounded by signals, but without a blueprint, it's really noise. It's not strategy. So think about where you're working, the couple big initiatives that you could do cross-functionally to make a win, which probably leads me to my last slide of my call to action to all of you. What are some things you can do tomorrow? You leave this place and you go home and you want to do one thing in AI. Here are some examples. So first off, data is the moat. The more rich data you have, the more you can be training on deeper patterns. So get your data right now. That way you can move out of awareness and into experimentation really fast. The next is run a signal so what workshop. Have people enlisted to teach your team to turn the insights around health or executive engagement into action. How are you going to get out of that was a cool summary to what are you going to do about it? And enlisting a team in a workshop can really help co-create as well as collaborate with the rest of the group and helping them with experimentation to move them through the curve. And that will also help you get rid of the manual work that you see in your organization. We talked about moving and building AI into a cross-functional workflow. I want to be really specific here. It must matter to 3 executives. High impact, cross-functional, you will get more support on your next thing if you do that really well. And then lastly, acting like an owner. Give AI ownership to one of your leaders, somebody that is far on the change curve who can really specifically focus on go-to-market problems to solve. I think capacity is hard to come by when we wake up every day and we don't obsess about this, but put ahead of an AI innovation in your CS team. It's going to stretch the rest of your team, and it might be hard at the beginning, starting at like 20%, and then it'll move to 50%. And then you're gonna get time back because they're doing so many great things for the rest of the group. So that's where I'll leave you. That's my call to action. Thank you. I don't know if we have time for questions, or not really, but yeah? Okay. Any questions you have for me?
I have one.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to set up all these systems? And do you have a team? All right. How long did it take you to set up all these systems? And do you have a team dedicated to setting these up? I work in smaller startup scale-ups, and I see all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, if only I had the resources, the time, the team.
Oh, yes.
So I'm just curious, like, what does that look like in your org?
Yeah. So first off, I think that CSG as an organization is always capacity constrained. I don't even have an operations full-time on CS at all. Like, just want to be really clear. Like, there are some, I was just talking to some of the other leaders here, and they're like, we don't even have CS ops leaders for big companies. Like, maybe they have one, but they don't have time to spend all on this. This is why I think it's so important. You take somebody out of the field, or you take some other 20% of someone's time and you dedicate to this, because it is no one's job right now. So somebody has to wake up every day and do it. So that's like my pointer, is that I think we all don't have a person to do this, right? So you've got to create that space. It will create a little constraint at the beginning, but should create efficiency. And then back to your point on setting this up, personally for me, I feel like for the first time in my career, health scores and all this data used to take me like 6 months to get going. Now I'm doing that in like 3 weeks. We're iterating in like a 2-week period of time. So the amount of move you can do and acceleration in a short period of time is just incredible. So I encourage you to have somebody take one of the initiatives. I showed my 3 boxes, but take one of those things, and that's what they own now. And they have to do it with AI. And you'll just be surprised, I think, at the outcome, even if you don't have an ops person to work on this. Maybe a CSM is really interested. Maybe there's a onboarding specialist or a support analyst that has these skills that might be the right person. So I don't know if that answers your question, but those are some ideas, or the way I started, because I also, too, was very capacity constrained. Yeah. Oh, all the things. Absolutely. All right, I'll be around for lunch. Thanks so much. Cool.